there's still people that live in denials. There's still people that don't believe in masks. There's still people out there that say, well, we don't have to do social distancing and all this kind of stuff. There is a virus here. It kills people. And the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
The reason why you're not wearing a mask?
I don't want to wear a mask. I'm a free man. I don't need it.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing with him? Is there any real crime out there now, or is it just people walking around the city? So, is this why you guys became cops, or would you prefer to be catching real criminals? You're contributing to the destruction of this state. This policy you're enforcing is causing far more harm than COVID-19 could dream of. Is there anything you guys won't do for money? Like, what's the limit? Like, the government started saying, oh, like, shoot them all in the knees or something. Would you do that? Would you do that? Or would you think, nah, it's a bit too far? What wouldn't you do for money? That's the question. That's what the Gestapo said in World War II. That's what the Stasi said in East Germany. They're just doing their job. Man, at this rate, the only job left will be police officer.
The UN Security Council issued a joint press statement earlier today calling for a new government that is united, inclusive, and representative, including with the full and meaningful participation of women.
Would that still include women's rights and a democracy? So would you believe in the democratic vote, though? So would people be allowed to vote in women politicians?
Stop being.
Okay, that's fine. We just want to ask.
People should not be walking around with masks. We just state for the record that masks are not theater. Wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and masks are protective. But it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
There has not been any indication that putting a mask on and wearing a mask for a considerable period of time has any deleterious effects.
There are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
You do not need to wear a mask indoors if, in fact, you've been vaccinated. Good that you're vaccinated, but in a situation where you have people indoors, particularly crowded, you should wear a mask.
So even if you are vaccinated, you should wear a mask. That if, in fact, you are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you are protected, and you do not need to wear a mask outdoors or indoors.
Sure, it's one thing when Alex Jones goes, hey, it's in this document, they're going to declare us all terrorists. It's in there. Now it's all over the news. Oh, you're a terrorist. Screw you. You're the globalist terrorist. You're the Nazis, socialists, commies, authoritarians, whatever you want to call it, telling me, an American, that I'm not essential and that and another lockdown's coming and I've got to put up with it? And I've got to take an experimental shot, or I can't fly on an airplane, or I can't have a job? Fuck you. Fuck you. I got plenty of words for you, but at the end of the day, fuck you and your New World Order, and fuck the horse you rode in on, and all your shit. You people are criminals. And just because you get the whole media to gaslight us and tell us that classical tyranny is a good thing, it's not. Everything you're doing is 101 evil, classically bad, classically evil, out of every dystopic novel, out of every dystopic country. It's you people that are to blame, and you're gonna be held accountable. And we know you're getting ready to stage terror attacks and blame it on us. We've got your number.
Sherwood Park, move on to breach of a public health order. The local police have been notified and are attending and will issue fines.
America is not a hospital. This is a constitutional republic that guarantees protection of individual freedom and liberty and due process. San Diego is not a hospital floor that we collectively have checked into that subjects all patients to equitably prescribed medical care with no due process. Our Constitution does not secure for government power to impose forced equity in medical mandates and interventions, or the power to punish carte blanche. There are 3.338 million people in San Diego County, 3,811 people who have died with COVID. Of those, 96%, 3,652 had comorbidities with hypertension, diabetes, cardiac disease accounting for the top three. Median age 77. That is a total fatality rate of 0.1%. 3.338 million people. That is a clear affinity for a specific vulnerable age and health demographic. We remove consent from treating us like we are patients in a hospital ward. We are done. The consent of the governed is removed. We will not comply. We do not consent. Nathan Fletcher, you are on notice. We will constitutionally remove all petty tyrants beginning now.
Your time is up. Thank you. Next speaker.
A lot of y'all might not like me after this, but I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna say what the fuck needs to be said and what people don't want, are really thinking but don't want to say. Fuck COVID. We're fucking over it. If you're a scary ass bitch and you want to fucking wear your mask, bitch. I have a right to breathe in motherfucking peace. If you're one of those motherfuckers that think you're gonna catch it, keep your motherfucking dumb ass in the house, okay? That is on you. If you want to get vaccinated, bitch, get vaccinated. That is not on us to get vaccinated. Leave us the fuck alone. AIDS is real. Diabetes is real. Cancer is real. All these shits is real. Car accidents, strokes, heart attacks, all types of shit. Accidental death. We're gonna die. Everybody dies. Our government doesn't get the right to dictate how the fuck we live in a pandemic. You don't either, bitch, because this is motherfucking America. I am free. I have a right to breathe how the fuck I want to breathe. So for those who don't understand, fuck you and fuck COVID.
The world is such a mix of just this terrible darkness right now, but there's also these really, really bright lights of hope. And I've just been bouncing back and forth between this just black-pilled hopelessness and this just overwhelming pride in humanity when I see them standing up and resisting. And so right now I'm like, okay, I'm motivated. Let's do something. Let's do what we need to do to protect ourselves, to protect our families. Today's guest is going to have a conversation with us about just that.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
Greetings, anarchists. Anarchists? Yeah, let's go with that. Greetings, anarchists. Welcome back to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I will be Patrick Smith. Today's guest is Talia. She's been an advocate for medical freedom for the past decade. She considers herself a religious freedom refugee. After the initial COVID lockdowns, her family's goal of homesteading and homeschooling skyrocketed to the top of their priority list. They left their home in Nevada and are experiencing the good, the bad, and the ugly sides of decolonizing their minds and getting on the path to self-sufficiency. Talia, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm looking for some hope and some action and a plan. So I hope that we can figure some of that out right now. How are you feeling? How are you holding up? What's your outlook on life right now?
You know, we're doing all right. I want to say that I was a part of the going to the rallies, going to the hearings. I did all that. We lived in California, moved to Nevada to try to get away from they had taken away, religious exempts in California. I thought, okay, we got to get out of here. Let's move to a state that's closer because we still had a lot of work in the one state. I mean, it's just, we couldn't take it anymore. After Scamdemic hit, we figured we got to just get to final destination in a sense and just already get land. It had been in our hearts to get more on the path to self-sufficiency. I was done with relying on anybody else to have say and control over our family's needs. And I want to say that I was very naive years ago, thinking, let's just put someone else who's going to just be better than the previous guy in this seat, and then maybe all my problems will go away. And it just proved time and time again that it doesn't matter. You could literally lose your rights overnight anyways, even if in a golden age you have a leader who actually does care about the people. Well, it's only a matter of time before some other, tyrannical overlord is going to take on. So we just said we gotta fix some of these multi-generational skill sets that have been taken away from us, and just do this on our own already. We just got to a point where we were done with the fake American dream that's been sold on everybody, and we wanted to just, as much as possible, be self-sufficient, and that was it. So we last summer bought 60 plus acres in the middle of America and started homeschooling. We started homesteading by the fall, where we were fixing up our cabins that we were on for the property that we got. And it went. We had a bird. My daughter had her little parrotlet, and this time last year, that's all we had. By fall, got a dog, then a bunch of chickens, then we got guineas and ducks, and we recently got goats. I mean, it is slowly turning into, I can't even believe this is my life.
A farm.
1 year later.
That's what it sounds like. It's turning into a farm.
Turning into a farm. We are trying to grow as much as we can. It is a huge learning curve. I think, the man upstairs knew that I needed more time to go through like the mourning phase. And mourning, a lot of people don't realize, like, when you just jump into something like this, you have to kind of mentally prepare yourself that life that you once had, it's dead and gone. And that was tough. I want to say fall and winter for me I had some really tough moments where I had to just like, get it together, Talia. This is all a good thing. This is all, and a lot of that had to do with surrounding ourselves with people who were going to be supportive and very positive and uplifting in our journey, versus the friends that when they would see pictures of like the huge spiders that looked like they were from a movie, telling me to just go ahead and like burn the house, leave, sell everything, and I know that I feel like they meant well, but hearing that so often, I was like, I can't surround myself with people like that. So I had to start listening, joining homesteading groups and meeting with locals, and really just people who've already been living this life, and just continuing to uplift my husband and I, letting us know that we are doing the right thing for our families at this point in time. Sorry, long intro there. No, I think you just set the stage for the entire chat we get to have now, which I'm like, you brought up like 7 things I want to ask about. But first, I want to back up and ask how you identify politically or apolitically. What would you sort of label yourself? None. I wanted to say for the longest time I leaned more towards conservative viewpoints, but in recent years, it is really just leave people alone. If they're not harming you, just leave them alone. And I don't know if I would exactly call myself like a voluntaryist. Any of the ists and isms, things can change overnight anyway. So basically, unless somebody else is harming you or others, just let them be.
Well, that is voluntarism. That is anarchism for sure. Yeah. When did tell me about like how you came to that position? Because I started out sort of conservative leaning as well, and kind of followed that path. And I don't know. For me, it was the police that sort of broke the superstition and just authority. I suffered some police abuse, and that made me begin investigating. So what was it for you? Like, what was your journey like to getting to where you are now, where you just want to leave people alone?
I mean, I had, once again, like, because I would go to these hearings and rallies, I had to just witness with my own eyes just the absolute lack of compassion for these people that were supposedly our paid public servants, from both sides. You know, one side, the side that's the loudest right now, which would be the left, that seems to be getting their way. Well, obviously, I never resonated with that side to begin with, but I was hoping for more from the opposition, and they just seem to be very weak. I still have yet to meet a very strong member of the Republican Party, the conservatives, that is actually going to like put their foot down and say, you know, they just keep wanting to go with the, but it should just be choice, without realizing that choice from the other end means everyone needs to do the same things, or else we're going to call you what they're calling us now, domestic terrorists. They're just going to mass label us. And I just felt that it wasn't working. It wasn't working on the other side. It was too much weak leadership, and they couldn't quite take a stance and stick to it and then fight for it, like really loudly and boldly fight for it. Really just turned me off. I mean, nothing will turn people off from the system more than sitting in a room watching over 200 parents for 2 hours, each get 20 seconds, if that, to tell their paid public servants a little bit about what happened to their child or to them, and how they just want bodily autonomy. And to see these people, number one, some of them didn't even show up. You have one job, it's to show up and vote on something. But number two, to be ignore them, and then gaslight these conditions to really getting me, and hopefully I feel like a lot of others that are slowly trickling off from that mindset. But I mean, to getting us to just realize that, yeah, this isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. It's great to see the passionate speeches. It's great to see people fighting, but going that route, trying to get validation from a broken system to begin with, is really, you know, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So I don't have the best way or the best solution. I just know that it's not to continue on in that hamster wheel. It's going nowhere. So
yeah, from the outside, once you get involved from the outside and try and, you know, participate in elections and change voter opinion and do all that stuff, which I have tried to do in the past, you realize just how futile it is. Also, it feels, rightfully so, like utterly debasing. Like you are groveling before your masters, asking for a little extra freedom or begging them to allow you to be able to do something that you want to do with your body or your children's bodies. And that's just disgusting and embarrassing. And then you try from the inside, like I ran for governor in the Libertarian Party, and you realize from the inside just how it's like 90% a show. Like it's a show that they put on. It's a song and dance that they use to distract people while they run off with all the money and power. And yeah, so I agree with you totally there.
And also to see the standards. I'm sorry if I could just mention one more point.
Sure.
I feel, and I'm speaking just for the medical freedom movement, and what I've noticed, our wins, not really wins, because we're fighting for things that should have never been taken from us to begin with. So when we get, at best, you know, the Children's Health Defense, and I know that they do great work, but they're winning these lawsuits, right? And nobody else, except for the people within the movement, cares about these lawsuits that are being won. Because the second that anybody types in about the lawsuit, the first 5 pages on any web browser is going to tell you how it doesn't matter because that organization is, you know, like they control the news anyways. They're controlling the narrative. So we're here rejoicing. Like, did you guys see? We just won. We won like the proof from the court stating that there's been no safety studies in over 30 years and nothing changes. But we're all excited because that's proof on our end. And life goes on. Tyrannical bills continue to be proposed. Nothing really, you know, and after win after win after win, where technically we were -1 and we got back to 0, I struggled with that. I was like, I need to raise my standards and the standards for my family. And I feel like we can only control so much. So yeah, I wanted to invest my energy, honestly, in, I listened to Owen Benjamin. I know a lot of people listen to him as well. He's got a podcast, Telegram channel. And he made this comment months ago where he just said, use your energy daily because we're going to be stressed with everything happening. He said, use that energy to learn a new skill, build something, create something, mold young minds in the right direction. And you're going to sleep better at night. You're going to feel better. And I felt that, that's, we have no control of anything, that if I could just every day get a new skill down, grow something, help keep something alive, it helps with everything going on. It really helps. I'll tell you that much.
Excuse me, I was sneezing.
Oh, bless you.
I was trying to hide the sneeze, but then you stopped talking right when I was sneezing, so I couldn't hide it. So I agree with you on the left versus right thing. The left is definitely my entire life has been the loud ones. And It seems like the right, the Republican Party, is fighting to get us back to 0, like you were saying. Meanwhile, the left is moving where the 0 is towards them. So it's like the Republicans are chasing the 0 that the left is in charge of, and it's just an embarrassing dog and pony show. So, okay. Yeah. So where did you begin? Like, what was your life before you sort of went out and homesteaded? Like, were you in the city? You don't have to give any specifics in terms of locations or anything that you're not comfortable with. Just in general, like, where were you? Where did you begin this transition?
Well, typical suburbia, cookie cutter type houses, HOA, guard gated communities with that false sense of security, because the reality is, they're not coming unless the guards at the gates, are not coming unless if it's a real emergency. If it's a real emergency, they're going to tell you go ahead and call 911 anyway. So, but we felt safer. What catapulted it? We had already been researching homesteading and the farm life, and just it felt like such a far off dream. We kind of started looking into that around 2018, thinking this would be great to do within the next decade. Just get a plot of land, not necessarily move there full time, but know that we have something safe somewhere. And what shot that dream into action was, and I've shared this often, but it was spring of 2020, right after the 2-week mark. They told us 2 weeks. By 2 weeks and a day, I was like, it's spring in Nevada, and we only get like 2 nice months of weather the entire year. In the entire year, 1 nice month in the spring, 1 nice month in the fall. The rest is freezing or way too hot. So forget this. I'm taking my children out on our bikes in this neighborhood that's got all these gates, and I had a neighbor like 5 houses down who took pictures of me and my children on our bikes, blasted them to this Nextdoor app, calling me an irresponsible mom. How dare this woman in the middle of a pandemic? Like, it was, and then it caused a scene. Of course, I demanded that she remove the post. I mean, those are my children out there. And you know what? That night, I looked at my husband and I'm like, the real luxury in life is to be left alone. No neighbors. We need to get that land now. And even though no realtor would schedule appointments with us because middle of pandemic, all of us packed into our van and we just left, headed to go look for some land, headed to go check out several states during the middle of all this. And that's what started the journey. Long of the short, because I do talk about this in my speech for Anarchovid that's coming up August 25th, right? Yes. Well, our praying for signs along the way. Our van breaks down in a state we weren't even looking into, and broke down within 20 minutes of this like retreat area that was just, couldn't take it as more of a sign, right? And that's kind of how that went. And we bought the land. Had running water, year-round running water, wells, no water bill, capability to be fully off grid. We still are using electric, but we have the generators, and we're about to get solar by fall, and doing it that way. But
So I'm where you were. I'm in suburbia right now, here in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
But my starting outlook is different. So 2 years ago, I'm an IT sort of executive. My whole life has been wrapped up in technology. I enjoy the city life. I enjoy being surrounded by really sort of motivated, productive people trying to be successful in business and technology. That's me. That's what I enjoy. And never, ever, even for a minute, wanted to move out into the middle of nowhere on any kind of farm type thing. That's not me. That isn't me.
Yeah.
I like city life. I like my air conditioning and fiber internet. Like that's me. And this past 2 years is changing that. It is in real time, slowly but surely, getting away from people, like you say, getting away from these. It's something about when you cram enough people into a small enough area, it turns them all into little micro tyrants. And and they all want to start controlling each other. And this pandemic has just exacerbated that and made it so more obvious and apparent just how many micro tyrants there are around me. And they're not even smart micro tyrants. They're freaking zombie moron micro tyrants. And I remember, so my daughter survived her leukemia treatment. She hasn't had a positive leukemia test in over a year and a half now. And one of her favorite things to do is to ride in the front seat, the front passenger seat of my car with the window down and hang her head out the window. It brings her a lot of joy. Okay. And so, I don't know, 4 months ago, we were going to get some food, and I let her sit in the front seat and hang her head out the window and just let the wind hit her face. It brings her joy. And listen, after what she's been through, I'm going to do a lot to help her have some joy, right? And so we're driving down the road, and this other lady in her SUV rolls past us and stops and sees my child in the front seat with her head out the window, slows down, matches speeds, rolls her window down, and goes at me for letting my kid. It's that was another little straw on the camel's back for me. That was another little breaking point. I'm like, I have got to get the fuck out of here. These people are nuts. They think they know what's best for everyone around them, and they don't. I'm getting there. I'm really getting there to that point, and I'm looking at my options. So I'm behind you in this process for sure. So that's why I'm really interested in this interview, because I want to learn what you went through and the challenges and the good and the bad, right? Okay, so you go out in the middle of nowhere, your car breaks down, you find a little spot, and you buy some property. What happens next?
Well, we had found the area that we really liked, and we were just thinking, this can't be it. Once again, the state wasn't even in our list, and we continued on going. And then the next place we went to, it was just 3 days of trouble, breakdowns again. Just we kept hitting walls, not having any luck. So we were going to turn around, and then it broke down a second time. Very close to that same spot. So we just realized, okay, this is where we need to go. This is really, I think, where he's telling us to be. And we go back to Nevada, obviously, had to make a following trip to go and really check out properties. So my husband and I went back about a few weeks later. And that's when we went back to that area a few weeks later. And that's when we found the site that we were meant to be on. So that was, I feel like all we had on our list of requirements really was water, or the capability to well water, we wanted to make sure that we were not going to be on land that had a bunch of, what would the word be? I guess often in our land search, it was interesting to find that there's a lot of properties out there where you don't own mineral rights, and there's a lot of natural gas lines that come running through. So depending on where that is on the property site, anybody, like the city workers, can just come in, they can fly their drones over it. Like that's their pipeline going through your property. And sometimes you'll find a beautiful, like 100-acre lot, and that pipeline is right across it. So if you're talking privacy, well, I don't want somebody to just have access to my property whenever, or mineral right thing, water right. These are things that you'd want to make sure that the realtor you're working with has the answers for. But yeah, water was the main thing, and that the wildlife in the area was, there was decent, I guess, hunting out there if you needed it.
Did you get a lot of property, or like how many acres are we talking?
Yeah, over 60 acres is what we ended up with. We're trying to grab some more, but we're really only using about 4 to 5 acres, and the rest is like woods. I mean, we're in an area in the country where it's like, yeah, lots of deer. There's wild hogs, wild turkeys. We see them, and we see them. We'll just see them coming onto the property. So that's going to be interesting. But we left most of it wooded, and that's where we hope all of the wildlife truly stays. Any of the wildlife that gets on the property, we have to deal with, especially the ones that are, dangerous to our livestock. So things like bobcats, mountain lions, if the wild hogs come onto the property, wild hogs are crazy. They're like 400 plus pounds and not safe. I mean, we have our children, the ages are 11, 8, and 3, so can't risk that. It's been a
I don't know where you are, but I'm in Texas, and we have the hogs here, so I know what you're talking about. Miriam in the comments asks me, did you put your middle finger at the idiot woman, Patrick? No, I find like when people are angry on the roads, the worst thing I can do to them is to pretend I didn't see them, so that they're just sort of over there in their little car, in their little bubble, just raging, little baby rage, and I'm just blissfully continuing my, drive. So no, I don't respond. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing really exposed the crazies among us. It did. It exposed.
And the thing about these people is, if I had pissed her off, if I had engaged, she might have called the cops, and then the cops would have pulled me over. And I'm sure there's some law against a kid in the front seat, at the age that they're at. Like, it's not worth it. I just want to get away from these people. Like, I want to. I want to stay here and make them leave me alone. That's what I want. That's what I should be able to do. That's what I have the right to do. But I don't have the sort of power to do that here in the city. You
would think, right? So if they really had the issues and they weren't feeling safe, and then they should be the ones packing up their cars and going to the middle of nowhere and like living in the woods. But it's the rest of us. I want to say it is the majority. Just like the videos you were showing right before the talk. I mean, yeah, a lot of people are rising up. A lot of people are getting loud, and that's always very comforting. I don't know what it's going to take. I really don't know what it's going to take at this point, but yeah.
Okay. So you bought the property. How did it have a house on it, or did you have to build a house? Like what was that like?
Technically no house, cabins. And so nothing like actually looked like a house. So that was a process, because if you're buying just raw land or an area that was like a retreat, you're going by, typically banks aren't going to help you with the financing at all. So you're talking a large down was needed. We had to sell our home in Nevada. And then we had to get on seller financing, because we had over a handful of banks that just denied us, even though you could prove on paper that you can afford that type of mortgage for sure. But for them, they're like, but there's no, I guess they're thinking return on investment. Like there's no, what if they can't pay? Now we're stuck with something that's not even a house. How do we sell this? It would be a hard sell, for what we found. So it all worked out. It took about a month to realize we just had to go through like seller thing. And then that apparently is pretty common. That does happen with land purchases. So in the fall, we met with a local contracting company here, and they were able to turn one of the cabins into a home. We needed them to add a kitchen, and we didn't need like a bunch of bedrooms. We only needed 4 total. So got rid of some bedrooms, made one bigger, and then added a kitchen. But building during the time of COVID is a little bit stressful. Everything's going up too. Steel, lumber, that was a nightmare. So we had to go with a local company that was very, we had to be very patient with them, and they were also being very patient with us as well, because sometimes it would be just weeks, oh, the insulation guy that was supposed to be here on Tuesday, he'll be here in 3 weeks. And so things like that. So the 8 to 10 week project took 5 months. And so in the meantime, we had to rent like an hour away from our land, and we would just go and visit weekly, get to know the area. But it's a lot. It's a lot to take the kids. And anyway, we had to just make do.
Shepard is in the comments. My friend Shepard, he is in the process of doing the exact same thing that we're talking about and that you did. He's moving out. He bought some land. He's moving out there, and they're getting set up like as we speak. So this is awesome. I am not unique, and a lot of people are thinking about doing this right now. In fact, the value of land north of the city has just skyrocketed because a lot of people are working on doing this. Okay. So then towards the beginning of the show, you said something that really piqued my interest because I didn't expect it. Was that there was like an emotional transition or acceptance that you went through, like where you were uncomfortable during the fall and winter or something like that? What did you mean by that? Can you tell me more about that? Like, what are you talking about?
Oh, I feel like this might be something that maybe more women could resonate with. But I guess just already knowing that it's like the exiting Babylon and not looking back type of mentality. You know that what you're leaving behind, you need to leave. You need to leave. You know that this is the right thing to do, but it was like, well, the play dates that my children are going to miss out on. The like me thinking about just all the old worldly things that shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but did affect me. And I think many women that are doing the same thing from what I'm hearing back from my followers that are on their journey. It's not easy, you got to say goodbye to all of those comforts and that made it so that you didn't want to leave those places to begin with. The conveniences. I can only go to the grocery like twice a month because it's over an hour drive one way. Things like that.
Okay, that is a difference. What other differences are there?
There's we've also, we don't care to ever have to go to a hospital ever again, but I'm just knowing that the nearest hospital is over an hour away as well. We had a flood that happened in the spring where early spring where our big creek flooded over, and all the property was fine, but the roadways were completely closed for 2 days. We couldn't leave the property. So that reality of what if this lasted longer? And then to have the neighbors say there was one of these floods that lasted 2 weeks and this meaning no ambulance will come in, no one can drive in for you. Like you're just stuck on your property. You got to make do, use your generators. I mean, it was all of that kind of hit me once again. This time last year, I was still living in suburbia. We've just, with what we've done in a year, any homesteader is just like, that was a lot. It was a lot to go through. And, dealing with all the critters, the bugs. I've never seen so many spiders in my life. Now we got venomous snakes. I mean, just all the things that we have to now research, prepare for, plan for. It can be a lot. And so my advice really is I'm sorry, it sounds so corny, but really it is taking it one day at a time and realizing you've been given this time to research it. Thankfully, it's not happening. I don't have to wait until there's a bite that's venomous. to then research it. Let me go ahead and take the time I need to research it now, get our kits equipped for the children. That for me was a lot. My husband, it seemed to not really affect him as much, you know? I mean, I don't even recognize the man that I married however many years ago. He's on another level right now. I mean, he's really
tell me about that. How did he
up to the
change?
plate.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, he looks like a full-on mountain man. He's got the full-on beards come over him. But the fact that he is leaving 2 to 3 times a day to go take care of vermin or pests that are getting to our guineas, chickens, that he's out there tending to the livestock, and that he loves it. It's so fulfilling for him, you know. And I was nervous about that at first. I go, he's going to hate this. He's really going to hate this. He's not going to be okay with any of this. But he has been really, really loving the farm life. And I've just seen him. I mean, it's like I'm so blessed to have been able to witness this boy that I married kind of turn into this man that I'm with right now. And just that he's overnight become, you know, it's one thing to know that your husband knows how to use a firearm and protect the family in case there's like a burglar that comes in. Like, okay, fine, we had that. But this like protective instinct that just truly is on him 24/7. I mean, it's awesome. It's really awesome. And it's not something you have to read about to learn about. I feel that it's a huge thing of what's missing in our lives right now. You know, I don't know if you wanted me to elaborate further on that.
I am so fucking inspired by what you just said as a man. Like, I feel that that's been missing from men for 30 years. So this is incredibly intriguing to me. And you are glowing when you're talking about him right now. I just noticed that. Like, so how has that changed you? How have you changed?
I have had to be okay with letting go of a lot of worldly and material things and wants and needs. You know how women are, where we long for like the days of the old, and women are always so drawn to the romance of the 40s, 50s, where, you know, men wrote letters and that they would just dance with them, and all of those things, the time spent, the holding hands, all those things, by the way, are free things you could give to each other. And my needs from my husband just became so few to where they used to be before. And in fact, I live with so much regret, which he tells me like I shouldn't and not to worry about it. But I really fell into the ways of the world the first, 7, 8 years of our marriage, where, you know, the whole keeping up with the Joneses, it's like I expected so much from him, and that messes with men. It really does. It messes with men. It's like shameful to have to like admit that. But I wasn't thinking that it was going to mess with him in that way, but no man wants to feel that he can't provide. And really, when you are living this type of life, how the man is supposed to provide in terms of protection, being able to offer you the shelter, knowing that he could get food if we need to get food, knowing that we have what we need on the in case of anything, it's different, and it's fulfilling different. Hopefully that makes sense.
I at least feel that it makes sense. It sounds amazing.
It's a newness for us. It's a newness. But I mean, I'm liking it. I'm really, really liking it. And because I'm no longer looking at we haven't had cable for years, but there's nothing that I can look at that I want more, you know. He's not getting that nagging version of myself either. So it's become very good for our marriage and very pleasant. And then to remind ourselves that we're one, we are a team in all of this, and we're both learning. So we have seen each other fail more times in the past year than succeed. And it's been supportive because every day we are both struggling in a little way with learning about this kind of life, you know? I mean, just him spending a week like on chainsaw duty, and just he needed like 3 days to really just research it first, get the safety equipment that he's going to need, and then to like operate the thing. I mean, that is something to see. But then to also, what we did in the late spring is we did hire these two, I guess you would call them homestead consultants, like professionals that came for a week, and they put us through an insane one-on-one, like 101 learning session where I was like, okay, cool, go teach my husband how to use a chainsaw. But then they're like, nope, get out here. What if he's sick? What if something happens to him and you have to be the one that's out here in 5-degree weather, making sure you guys got your firewood for the, and I was like, that's not going to happen. But they made me do it. They made me put the equipment on, cut down trees with a chainsaw. I mean, I was doing that in the spring. Like, neither of us recognize who the other person was. And it's been a year, but it's for the better. Like, all these things, I'm telling you, you saying earlier that it's not you just don't see that in you. Yeah, you're not going to until you are thrown into this, and then you don't want to see it any other way. Like it's, I mean, I'm a 5 foot nothing, still waiting on her growth spurt, you know, woman in her 30s. And I can't tell you how many things I have done in less than a year that I've told myself in the past, I'm never doing that. I will never do that. So
we have a few questions in the comments, and you guys are welcome to ask questions of myself or our guest, of course. Please, if you have a question, you know, start the comment with the word question in all caps so that I don't miss it as it goes by, because I'm watching all of our platforms right now, the chat. Shepard asks what region you're in. So be as specific or vague as you'd like to be with that question, Talia.
Yeah, just, you know, middle of America. Some would call it, there is a certain region, mountains, hills, all the seasons that you'll get. I'm pretty sure everybody can already figure that out. You get every season here. You're surrounded by lakes, rivers, lots of woods, lots of trees.
I suspect that you live near Shepard, actually. I bet you do. I'm just guessing because I don't know where you live, but yeah, that's interesting.
Go ahead.
Are there other like-minded people near you that are more of the let's leave people alone, let's become self-sufficient, or is that kind of, you know, at least a little bit like everybody out there?
You know, small town USA, and there's a lot of it, it's like being on another planet when you come from a city. It really is. People just, I feel like pandemic or not, they just want to be left alone regardless. That's why they come out so far, the wide open spaces. They just want to be able to do what they want on their property, shoot their guns, blow things up every now and then, as long as they're being responsible. And I've noticed that, yeah, the neighbors, they pretty much, I want to say everyone we've met is more on the conservative side of things. They are a little bit like nervous and terrified about what's going on in this country. But yeah, it is a leave people alone mindset. I feel like the few people I've met that are for the gene therapy that's going out, they're trying to, you know, force on everybody, those people themselves could care less if we got it or not, you know. We don't see masks when we go out. It's weird being able to go into these stores and you're fully like strapped all the time. You know, my husband is like just carrying all the time, and I've had to practice carrying as well. And nobody cares because the person behind the counter likely has a shotgun right there. I mean, you know what? It feels safer. I never thought that walking into a bank and knowing that like everybody in line is fully like armed. You know, I mean, but what I'm saying, like they can defend themselves. They're packing. I feel safe when I'm in that bank.
Yeah.
Because like, who's going to be the idiot that's going to go in and rob? You know, and in an area where everybody's like that. So.
Texas is a lot like that. You know, even Dallas, the city, everybody's armed, and I've open carried for years now, all day, every day, wherever I go. So that is still more normal even than in the city. Now, if you go to Austin, Texas, that's different. But yeah,
I was gonna say maybe not in Austin, but you're right. Yeah, most of Texas, I'm sure, is completely like that. But I grew up most of my life in California. It's like
so
different,
if I'm looking for land, how much land should I be? Should I be looking for 60 acres, or is 10 enough, or do I need more, or what? What do you think?
Well, I feel like because of that incident with the previous neighbor, that might have traumatized me a little bit. I literally just did not want to see people. I didn't want them to see me. And I wanted a lot of trees. So yeah, besides water, we were like, lots of land where you can't see me. Like if I invited more than 10 people to a gathering, nobody could from their porch see and then report us to whoever if they're going into reporting people, which wouldn't surprise me. So that was key. I wanted to be around a lot of trees and land. But I mean, if you just want to do the homesteading, you can homestead on 1/4 of an acre. There's people that have thriving, amazing gardens and can have at least some chickens on 1/4 acre. But, I want to say, 10 acres is pretty big also. And if you're in a good area, you kind of like the neighbors and the locals, then maybe you don't need to have as much, I guess.
No, I really like the idea of not being able to see anybody at this point. Like I'm ready.
So, yeah,
I'm ready for some elbow room. I really think that humans are just not meant to live this closely packed. Like I just think it brings out the worst in everyone. And you're right,
yeah. and it crushes the overpopulation lie that they're spinning, right? Because if you just go an hour away from any big city, it's open land everywhere. And in this area, every single neighbor, no water bill. They have the generators, because also if there's like an ice storm and they can be out of power for 3 weeks. So they're just prepared. Everybody's just ready. And I think that for me was an unnecessary stress in the beginning, because I was feeling very, very rushed to have to get every single thing that I need, knowing now that you're always going to have something to do on a homestead. There's always going to be something you can build, add on to. So don't burden yourselves with that. And our next big step in this journey has been that my parents left California and they moved to one of the cabins here in May. So I got my mom and dad in a cabin. Mom wants to be the communal chef. So that's been really great, because she's just cooking for her grandchildren, for us, and she loves it. My father still able to he's a pastor, but his church in California was being terrible. They weren't letting him reopen. It was one of those. So he was able to retire, and he still can do his writing here. And then less than a month ago, my brother and his family moved into another spot on the property too. And this is it's communal living now. I mean, but they're all about this life. They are my sister-in-law and I, we split up the homeschooling curriculum. My brother is super helpful with my husband when it comes to all of the farm work and things to build. Like they're building a goat shelter together. Today's power wash day. So they're power washing all of the crates and the animals, things for water, their food. I don't know. It's just a weird, it's so different. But I know a lot of people are considering that too, living with other families. And it works because we still all have our own thing. I wouldn't recommend Waco style where you're all in the same building, and you know what I mean? And then also obviously all the other terrible things about that.
That too. Yeah.
But it's one thing. I don't see my parents all the time, but it's very nice knowing that they are there in a cabin, 30 feet one way, and that the children, when they wake up, what's Gma cooking? And they just want to go to the I mean, they get to grow up with their grandparents. So we're doing so much here. And once again, it's all just going in the opposite direction of what this country has lied to us about the American dream being. We're also trying to build back families to being stronger. You know, if there's a fight, we resolve it. We have weekly, like on Sundays is the day that we all have to get together. The children are in a separate room and they're all occupied. And we just kind of hash things out there because we don't want to do this, you know, well, you offended me with this and that's it. Bye. I mean, it's so easy for people to just write people off, especially family nowadays. I've never seen this. Culturally, also being Spanish and Filipino, we never accepted that about American culture, like suing your siblings on Judge Judy. You know what I mean? Parents suing children. And I understand that there are people that unfortunately bridges have already been burned and there is no accepting those parents back into their lives, those siblings back into their lives. I get that. But I want to also, in sharing with our journey, try to inspire people that you get to be the patriarch of your family. You get to be the matriarch of your family, and you can change that for the future generations. You know, we could bring back the blood is thick. Because lately, this country, like, you can't tell that to people, you know, and because there's it's a society that's celebrating brokenness, broken homes, and
there's a dark side to that though too. The blood is thick, you know, enables a lot of abusive, you know, family members. Yeah. You know, the thinning of the familial blood has put an end to a lot of that. Like when people are aware that you can just walk away from abusive family members, that limits the amount of abusive family members, which is a fantastic thing. Right. Something that has never really existed in all of history. So that's a benefit to it, right? So how do you balance that?
Oh, and I'll point this out. Obviously, my parents are of the same views, mindset in, you know, I'm not inviting family member here. We have family that doesn't even know where we're located, period. But my brother, my parents were all on the same kind of wavelength with the whole leave people alone thing. And nobody with that like entitled spirit is coming here thinking that they're going to stay. Like this is a joint effort. And we figured if we can't even do this with like-minded family members, you know, how are we going to do this with other voluntary communities out there? Because it's going to take, you know, you can't do all of this on your own. If it's just my family doing all of this, we would be burned out by sundown. I mean, it would be exhausting. So I am grateful that, you know, we have that. And I know that most people don't. And so I do feel, but like obviously on my husband's side of the family, they're not close like at all. And yeah, I totally agree. If there's actual like abuse and terrible people in your life that would be the first to rat out you and your family, no, absolutely not. You have to protect yourself. You have to protect your children first. And yeah, so.
Here's something I'm worried about. Like the lifestyle that you're talking about is really appealing to me. And this is surprising for me to say, honestly. This is totally new for Patrick. Okay. So, but I'm also worried. So my job, my career, my hobbies, everything I love is wrapped up in technology. I'm here at my computer working all day. You know, I'm CTO for Float, where, you know, it's a social network that is non-censorious, and I'm in the front of the computer all day. How is that even compatible with the things that I would need to do living on a homestead? Because when I'm picturing a homestead, I'm thinking like, okay, I got some cows, I got some pigs, I got to feed them, and I don't know what you do with them, but I got to do that stuff. Somebody has, you know, I got to repair stuff around that. Like, is it possible for me to have both of those that career plus the homestead, or is the homestead just the career? Does that have to become your life if you choose this option?
Well, I think that all depends on the number and the amount that it's going to take for your dwelling to thrive and for your, you know, like whatever your number is to make things work monthly for you and your family. And if you are moving to a place where you really don't have as many bills, you don't have as many things that you need to be paying for. It's not expensive there. Maybe you don't need to have that many hours on the computer weekly, because that's also not great for you, you know? I found that all of us, we didn't have to work as hard. Before, our days were like 10 to 12 hour days, really like hustling it and just working, you know, online. And now we're doing like 5-hour days and dipping out for an hour and a half each when it comes to the homeschooling, the chores. But we have our weekends where we're not in front of these things. And I think it just depends on how you schedule everything, you know.
Interesting.
Like if you were to do this now, you have children, and you have, how many children do you have? And their age, like
2 young children. One's already out of the house. So they're 6 and 7, so kind of young still, but very soon they'll probably be old enough to start helping.
Yeah, very. I mean, our son was 7 when we started here. Our daughter was 10, and they handle all of the feeding and fresh water for the animals every day. So they're doing that. But it's during 2021, so they get to jump on their hoverboards and go to feed the chickens, and go to
That's awesome.
we're just working with what we got, you know. But it takes them about 15 minutes in the morning. First thing they do, let all the animals out to forage, because we are trying to free range our animals. When the fall rolls around, we can't as much because you don't have all the leaves in the trees, so you're going to have the hawks that are going to swoop in and get any of the poultry. But for now, the animals forage in the morning. They give them fresh water, and then by sunset, they naturally go back into their little coops, and the kids just make sure they have food. The water's still okay. They're able to handle that and collect the eggs, and Oh,
and I bet that's so good for the kids too, like learning skills and responsibility and just having responsibilities. Kids don't have responsibilities anymore. That's like,
they love it.
Men. This is one of the things you were talking about with men. Men don't have that kind of responsibility anymore, and having that and owning that is so healthy for a man. So like, yeah, we have lost something with these cities. What I'm realizing is these cities, we have lost something that we didn't even know we were losing, and it's gone. And I'm hearing from you, like you're finding these things I didn't know I was missing out there. So
we're all feeling so helpless, and so things are just out of our control. They're out of our hands. There's nothing we could do about it. And I mean, try farm life. Being the one that's in control, like it's up to you for all these heartbeats all around you to thrive and to make it to the next day. And you no longer feel like you need to control something in your life. I mean, it's great. It's great. And immediately, if any man is feeling like I need to feel a bit more alpha in my life and in control of things, animals and being responsible for them, and also them knowing who's boss. I mean, it's great. It's great.
We have a couple questions.
Somebody's going to listen to me. Nobody else in my life listens to me, but that guy over there is going to listen to me. That goat and those chickens are going to listen.
What's your goat's name?
We have 3. They're Fauna, Flora, and Merriweather.
Cool.
The children. Those fairies from, Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah. Question from Ocean Breeze. How are the property taxes and building codes where you live? Do you have state taxes? And don't answer anything that would give away your location, obviously. Stop trying to dox my guests, people.
There's property tax if you're living, that life, and some people, I won't go too much into that, but I think you know where I'm going with that. There is building codes and permits, and almost non-existent. You'd want to look up counties in the country where there's like no permits really for anything. The people here, they kind of laugh when you talk about that stuff. They're like, look, when they fly their drone over eventually and they're doing their Google Earth thing, and they see that you've added another property, they'll just add it to the bill. They're going to just assume you've gotten it. But I'm like, but what if they come in and they're like, don't open the gate. Don't let people in to your property.
Oh, awesome.
I mean, it's one of those, right? Like, being just so used to California and saying, okay, well, am I going to need to do your guys that are building, do they have insurance? And in case one of them gets hurt on the job. And then for the main guy to tell me, if one of them gets hurt, he's fired. He didn't get to use this on his resume. I'm like, no. But what if he gets hurt? What do I have to do? He's like, no, if he gets hurt, he loses a job. He doesn't get paid. That's it. End of story. It's another world out in these areas.
All right. Interesting.
There's a lot of things. I'm not telling you not to go get permits and not to go get the right things. I'm just saying, I guess it also depends on what it is you're building. If it's a simple add-on, permits can really postpone you by a long, unnecessary amount of time. But there are freer counties and there are freer parts of the country where you're not required to have to like fill forms for every little thing you want to do on your property.
Yeah. My Awesome Channel on Odysee asks, he says, I'll ask the inverse question. How do I get a womanly woman who likes the country life? She won't have access to the nail salon yoga classes nor pumpkin spiced coffee.
Man, I don't even know if I'd be qualified to answer that. It's been forever since I've dated. So back when I was dating my husband, I met him at the mall. And neither of us were into this kind of life. And, you know, he was into skateboarding and playing video games. And it was, once again, it's a whole other. But nowadays, to meet a woman that wants that, I mean, I guess joining up with homesteading groups, you'd have to meet women like that at places like farmers markets, because then you could see that they already care when it comes to their food and how it's sourced. That's a big deal. I guess that would be how I'd advise that, you know, join certain groups that have similar interests. Women who are looking up, I don't know, donkeys, like, you know, join these groups where like farm animals, and yeah, you'll meet people that way, I guess. I don't know. I'm sorry if that was a terrible answer. There's this website called farmersonly.com. I can't vouch for it, but I've heard of it. And people swear by this. It's one of those, I mean, their ads are funny. It's like, is the girl next door 1,000 acres away? But Farmers Only, I mean, maybe try that.
Interesting.
Then clearly the women on that are looking for the farmer, the guy that wants to do this kind of life. Could be a good start.
Okay, let's talk about homeschooling and maybe a little bit of parenting. So I have, just to let you know where I come from, I have been unschooling my two youngest children, and not only, you know, peacefully parenting or principled parenting them, but I also have, for those that don't know, peacefulparentinguniversity.com. I have a course of videos that we add to occasionally, giving people tools to put in their parenting toolbox to handle the challenges of parenting in sort of peaceful, principled ways. You know, what do you have to say, or what are your thoughts on parenting and schooling?
Well, the homeschooling thing has been one of those that, you know, you just cannot be too hard on yourselves. If you're seeing the curriculum that they are already teaching children nowadays, and they're actually approving, you see the type of teachers that they are allowing to be, that we can't vet our children's teachers, you know. You're suddenly at peace and at comfort in knowing that even if your child literally sat at home and just stared at a wall, that it's going to be better for them than them being in any of these institutions. So that gave me, you know, just a sigh of relief in that sense. Showing my children that I'm learning alongside them. So that's the one thing that I wanted to take with that. I read a lot of John Taylor Gatto. I'm sure you know who he is, but he with his lectures and talks, the inspiration to show your children you are learning too, and learn alongside them, because it will already teach them that you never stop learning. Number one, oh, mommy's learning with me. I'm never going to stop learning. And then not having to keep it so routine. Like their homeschooling days we are only doing 4 days a week, and it's only 3.5 hours with a break in between. The kind of classes that they're taking, obviously they're learning how to shoot. They got their 22s. They're doing like axe throwing, and there's, it's like, yeah. So we're just kind of going with what our children love because they're both different. My son is more of that engineer mindset, so we know that he prefers like math. His thing is not really English, so we don't force stuff onto them. And we're not making them take tests so that we're not giving them mini panic attacks. Curriculum-wise, I really like to use The Good and the Beautiful. The Good and the Beautiful is a good one, and I'll use Scholastic or like Brain Quest when it comes to just like math, as long as they're not doing anything Common Core, because we're not going to teach them the long, insane way. Like we'll show them this is what your peers are learning in their school right now. Is this incredibly long way to do this one equation, but we're going to show you how we learned it when we were children, and this is faster. So which one do you prefer? You know, the toughest one is the history lessons because and science, because just so much of it is who knows. So we have to preface everything with them like we want to use discernment. Remember that the people who write the history were likely the winners, and so this is what they're saying.
Which is like the most important lesson of history, is that the winners write it. Like if you start there, you've taught them more than public school will ever teach them.
Right. And to think critically and to ask all the questions. And honestly, when they're like, well, so mom, did that really happen? Was that really possible? I can, with confidence, look at them and tell them, we'll never know. I don't have the answer for that. But you know what? It's not that important. It's not that important. And how many of us have just been able to accept every single day, oh, great. It's like nothing shocks you anymore, right? With everything that's happened when you find out something was a lie. You're just not surprised anymore. I was like, children, when mommy was a child, I thought Columbus was this hero. And then sometime in my 20s, there were all these like race wars starting to happen. And I found out apparently he wasn't a great person. But then now I'm finding out, no, he wasn't so bad anymore. So my point here, children, is that it's always changing depending on who is telling it and doesn't really affect my life that much. So moving on, let's learn about an actual real life skill, how to propagate seeds. And then it's like the next lesson. But yeah.
Livewire asks, is it possible to homeschool without being forced to test according to a state-regulated curriculum? Can I teach my kids without paying a school to send lessons to me? I think that's depending on where you live. Like if you live in New York, I think you actually have to have like a certified teacher sign off on your lesson plans, and your kids have to be tested, and you have to get continual reviews and approval. But in Texas, there's literally nothing. So, is that?
Yeah, we're same. You know, there's a lot of states still where the homeschooling laws are just freer. There's nobody that has to check in. No state agent has to come and give a stamp of approval for what we're doing with our children. I feel like in this state, they just hope that your child knows how to read by the age of 16, you know, but even if they didn't, they couldn't do anything about that. There's a lot of states still. I would just look up homeschooling laws by the state and then take it from there. Some are certainly stricter than others.
And the attitudes on homeschooling vary by where you live as well. So like some places homeschooling's looked on as like this weird either hippie thing or like a conspiracy theorist's nut job thing. But in Texas, it's really normal. Like unschooling is considered probably extreme here. So we just sort of tell our kids, like, you know, and our kids know what homeschooling means. And so when somebody asks them, where do you go to school? They say, oh, we're homeschooled. They are. It's just, you know, more flexible and interactive maybe than even a homeschool curriculum. But I don't know.
Right.
Homeschool curriculum. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Homeschooling was the norm for the longest time. It was the norm. What was not normal was expecting to send your precious child off to go be taught by somebody who works for the state for 8 hours of their day. You know, that was not normal, but it always takes one generation to turn what is not normal suddenly into a new normal, and everybody just accepts it. Just like what they did with school lunches, you know? It used to be normal that your parents made you lunch every single day, and they didn't have a list of like a million things everyone else in class was allergic to that they couldn't put in your lunch. God forbid you share your lunch with somebody else. Like they just made you lunch. And then all of a sudden it became the cafeteria style lunches that were normalized. And now what it's leaning to is, because those allergy lists are so incredibly long, schools in most states would rather you just let them feed your children, you know, with the Michelle Obama diet. And like, that's going to become the normal. So now it was unusual when my daughter was still going to a charter school. She was like the odd man out when it came to,
you make your kid food?
Yeah, that I was still giving her like, and we were using those warming containers, you know, with like, it's like those rocks, like the lava bag rocks. So you warm those and then you sit it next to the hot food and it keeps it warm until their lunch. And she was that kid that had to pull it, and she was eating like beef stroganoff from last night's dinner, and then there was like a fresh apple in there. But she just felt like, Mom, I'm the only one that's doing this. Everybody else is eating what the school is providing. And it was same, you know, cheese pizza or chicken nuggets or, but my point being, it goes from normal to suddenly not normal in like one generation, you know?
Yeah, like
So-
there's an entire, there are 25-year-olds that have never existed without the TSA. Like that just, and they think it's totally normal, and it would be weird to not have them, you know?
Yeah, that is shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when
it's
you
messed
see
up.
movies from like movies from the 80s and early 90s where everybody's like running through an airport, or you got to say goodbye to your loved one right there at the gate. It's like you have to explain that to your children going, yeah, this is all pre 9/11 stuff. This is before the Patriot Act that took that away from us. Yeah, you're right. Now it's all just going to be normalized. Just like the trauma that's happening in schools nowadays, the masks, the things making no sense, but just don't question them anyway. That's going to be normal for them.
Yeah.
We have to almost remind them like we had actual childhoods where we weren't afraid of everything and everyone, you know.
Shepard asks, my wife and I pay over $15K a year for health insurance. With our mainstream rat race lifestyle, it's no big deal. Your thoughts for serious stuff like heart attacks? Like, that is something, like, what do you do for health insurance out there?
Well, there's an option out here to have, to go with like, I don't want to say they're churches, but you know, I'm sure you've heard of those kind of church like health insurance companies where everybody kind of pays into a pot.
Yeah.
And then for an emergency thing. Well, so we only pay for our whole family like a little more than $200 a month.
Yeah.
And if something crazy happens, it would be a one-time yearly of like $10,000 would be our deductible, which sounds terrible, but we don't use any. I mean, it's like we've saved money because we came from in California years ago. They wanted us to pay $1,500, and that was with one less kid. And we were paying that monthly, and the deductible was $7,500. And so, yeah, really, I feel like it's a huge savings so far. So people have options like that in other places.
Livewire. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hope that I don't mean to be.
No, you're fine. Yeah, you're good. Livewire asked the state, or he didn't ask. He just said that the state school system is really the problem I have living here. His 8-year-old brought their homework to him that was basically global warming propaganda, and that's when I started looking at homeschooling. Yeah, man, like get your kid out of these public schools. It all is. Look, I've had basically 2 sets of kids. My oldest is an adult now, almost out of college at this point. And she was parented traditionally, forcefully, and went through the entire public school system start to finish. And her outlook on life is very, without getting personal or too detailed, her outlook on life is very sort of mainstream, what she was trained to think by the system that she went through. It is so readily apparent to me that I did that to her by subjecting her to that school system. I didn't know I was doing that to her at the time, but that's what happened. And that's what the system does. That's what the system was designed to do. And that's what it's really good at doing. And so if you have your kid in these places, that is what will happen, because that is what the machine was designed for. And that is what it does.
And they want you to start that with them. Yeah, they want you to start that with your children younger and younger and younger every year. You know,
Yeah.
I'm starting with just like the daycares, having to go right back to work because we're so used to this like 2-income household. I mean, it was all one of those by design type of things to destroy the family. But you know, yeah, with even that's why I was saying history is a struggle for us, because even the American history book that we're having to read with the children wants to state that although in other cultures all over the world, they had issues with each other, it was because of a class structure, meaning the rich against the poor, but racism really took place in the Americas. And you're like, no, that is not true. Like every culture, ancient culture, has had and still has racists to all skin types. And I can't teach that to them. But knowing that that's what they're being taught in schools. My daughter was in first grade in Nevada, came home around Martin Luther King week and told me, Mom, did you know that all white people are just racist? And I was like,
what?
No. Can you elaborate on that? Yeah, my teacher told me that white people are just more, whatever word she used for susceptible, but to being racist than others. And so I had to stop that immediately. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This is already in first grade. I mean, it's getting worse by the day. You see some of these teachers, preschool, kindergarten teachers, on their TikToks bragging about teaching their classrooms about gender identities and all these. It's like, no, we're not doing that. The best thing, once again, is if you're not going to vet your children's teachers, you need to pull them out. It doesn't matter what you make. If all your wife's income is to just support the fun stuff, the Amazon Prime account, the Netflix, the extra car you likely don't need if she was staying home, just knock it off. Like, get your children out and do what you need to do to get them out of these institutions. Big time.
Better hate speech has never been spoken. So let's talk. Let's close on this. So last call for questions. If anybody has any questions in the comments, get them in now. And then while we're giving people an opportunity to ask any last questions, let's talk about your talk coming up at Anarchast, the event. What are you speaking on?
Yeah. Just a little bit more in detail on, same how we got here and the struggles that we had in the first year of homesteading. So that's kind of the focus on that, because the first talk in February was on the need we had to leave the cities and do this. So yeah, that's pretty much what the talk's about.
Okay, awesome. So is there any last words that you'd like to say to the audience? Any calls to action? What do you hope people do, or what do you hope people's takeaway from this chat is?
Well, I just want people to know that it doesn't have to be the extreme. There is off-grid, and then there's being off-grid. You can prepare yourself to getting to a point where you can live an off-grid life, but you can still have those comforts. You just don't need to be on their grid, if that makes sense. The off-grid types, that's goals for me. That is the people that will take these smart devices and they're done with it. They don't want any, they are going to wake up when the sun is up, go to sleep when the sun goes down, as our bodies were really designed to do. That's too intense for most people. I'm not there, clearly, not there yet. But I just want people to know that we can all do this. And I really would, just like you said earlier in the talk, the last person that think that they could do this kind of life, that liked and admired the people from afar that did it. Never saw myself doing anything like this, but I have never been more fulfilled, feeling like a true sense of purpose by not depending on anyone anymore. You know, it's practicing what you preach. We are responsible for ourselves, for our families. Every decision that we make, whether it works or not, we don't require that everybody else on the planet does the same thing in order for it to work. It just, you know, and then teaching that to our children. The world that we thought was going to make sense for our children no longer exists. I go into that with the talk for, you know, Anarchapulco. I go into that. But redefining success has a lot to do with it as well. Like our parents' generation really thought success meant going to a great university, you know, getting that good education to go to a university, to get some career, to get that 30-year mortgage that you're going to be tied down to maybe retire with a decade left of, you know, and that's not it. Like, you look at a lot of successful people, to their mind, what they define success as, and even the rich and famous, it's like, they just want to be left alone in those later years. I'm going, why can't we have that now? Why can't we have that now while we are young? And yeah, I hope that if anything, it piques people's interest to daring to see if they could do this. And I really recommend getting in your cars, driving a little bit away from the city to, at least for a day, realize, like, the overpopulation thing, it's a myth. And, you know, seeing small farms, local farms, meeting with these families, going to these farmers markets weekly because they're still there. And at least, if anything, networking, making those connections right now, you know. I know that this life, it's not for everyone, but I feel that the more people that are doing this, that are taking things upon themselves, with zero expectations from anyone else to provide for them, would be humbling for this country and better, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So where can people find you if they want to follow you or learn more from you?
Well, lost my Twitter this summer, lost my Facebooks this summer. So I am still on Instagram. My page is private, but it's at Talia _Likeitis. But I do have a public homesteading account that is not considered controversial yet. And that is Talia _Likeitis. And that's got all of, like, our homesteading journey on it. It's got about 9 highlights so far on the initial first move and what we've built, where we're at. If people want to follow along there, you know, that would be a good one. And then a Telegram channel, just Talia Likeitis is my Telegram. So.
And you are speaking at the upcoming Anarchovid event, August 25th through 28th, I think, which is a free virtual event. Anybody can attend anywhere you are, as long as you have a decent internet connection. Sign up for free and check out the event, and you can see Talia's talk as well as the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I will close on a comment from Shepard, who it's actually a request, and I think it's perfect to end the show on. He says, Talia, you are a normal, intelligent, attractive human. Please keep speaking out. Neckbeard dudes don't sell well. You are bright. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So, Talia, I hope you and I can stay in touch, and I hope to have you back on the show in the future to hear how things have been going.
Yeah, I would really love that. It was a very good time on here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
I really enjoyed it. All right, guys. Thanks for participating in the comments. Thanks for watching. And it was great talking to you all.
Take care. Bye.